Finally got a little bit of warm weather out here, and I'm out here messing around a little bit with my radio. The question I have today is it worth going out and buying a brand new ham radio? What are the pros and cons? So one thing I've noticed with the Yaesu product line over the last couple of years is they've been going definitely down scale in price, and I think, I don't know if in quality, but let's put this in perspective real quick. I've showed you this radio before on the channel, and it is almost a 20-year-old radio. I think this thing came out in 2001 or 2, and I think this was, first generation. Very old radio. And the other day I was having some issues with it, with the on and off switch. It's like it's an old, think of this as an old TV remote, right? So you push this button here, listen to it, turns back on. But the other day, over the years, it's been harder and harder to turn this thing on and off. So what I did was just take it apart. There's 6 screws on here. Cleaned up the contacts with a little bit of alcohol and a Q-tip, and there was just dirt and kind of some carbon buildup on those contacts. And lo and behold, I put it back together, and it works good as new. So that was kind of my determining factor of what I was going to do next. They make a lot of radios now, Yaesu in particular, around the $100 price point. You can get into a dual band brand new radio for about $100 now. So it's kind of tempting to go and do that. And I was thinking, if this thing's broken, then I might, or if I can't get it working good, I might want to go consider that. But the deal is with those radios, they're kind of like the Chinese radios. They're a little cheaper. They're kind of, the accessories don't really fit. The antennas are actually reversed, are kind of a reverse connector from this. You wouldn't be able to use this antenna or any of these accessories on those new radios. So that's kind of a bummer. So I got it fixed, and now I'm thinking, now that this thing's working really good again, it needs a new battery. This one's kind of on its last legs. It holds a charge okay, but not as good as it was when it was new. So I have to consider spending, $40, $50 on a new aftermarket battery, or $75 on a brand new factory battery, which I don't think I need to do that. There's some pretty good aftermarket ones if you know what you're looking for. But the point is that there's nothing wrong with these old radios. The thing about this one in particular is that it is cast aluminum. The housing is bulletproof. I mean, it's die cast aluminum, so it's super solid. It's water resistant, not waterproof. You couldn't dunk this under, though they make the VX6 and 7R. The VX6 is still in the line, but I'll get to that in a second. But this thing is basically, a military grade radio. I mean, they're super strong, and so. But what do you do? It's definitely getting older. It's kind of getting up there in age, and how long is it going to last? Well, I don't really know, but I've used it for quite a few years myself, and I bought it and it was old. I don't really have the answer to that. But since it's working so good, the screen is still fine, the controls all work, all the buttons work. So I think I'm going to go ahead and invest in another battery, maybe 2 batteries, and I don't see why it shouldn't just keep working. As long as you don't drop it or break it or do something abusive to it, it should be perfectly fine. So the key is with these old radios is I wouldn't get too worried about it. If you find something that you like, there's actually a couple of old radios that are getting on 10 years old now that I would like to own. I don't see any problem with them. It's best if you can see them in person. I know a lot of people who buy this kind of stuff on eBay and sight unseen, and I don't think that's a great idea. You'll want to turn it on and make sure it functions on and off. You'll want to check all the buttons to make sure they function, and this thing right here too, the dial, it's important. It's important that it works, because I've had them jam up before. And check it on a couple of repeaters in the area, or if the person you're buying it from has one, see if you can transmit and receive from it. If it does those things, you're good to go. I don't see that there's really any problems. Usually if you can transmit and receive on a radio like this, you're good to go, and I wouldn't really worry about it. This thing has definitely been used a lot. I mean, some of the physical things like the dust covers and the water covers are kind of worn out, and I wouldn't trust it to be as water resistant as it once was. But the features on these radios, especially these older Yaesu ones, are actually a lot better than the newer ones. This has a spectrum analyzer on it where you can look at a frequency set and you can see, if there's any activity on it. You don't get that in a lot of the newer ones. I don't use it a lot. What else you get? You have a full dot matrix display, which a lot of the newer ones still don't have. They've kind of gone back to the old style. So you can put in actual names. You can't see it, but you can put names like Mount Hood or the names of your repeater. You can write them in, which some of the newer ones are kind of, they've kind of gone away from that. And it's kind of a bummer. But where you would need a newer radio, if you really want to get into the digital modes, which I know nothing about, but I know that they're around here, and I know people really get excited about them, then this wouldn't work for you. You can get onto these, reflector systems and, internet type things, but that has to be built into the, to the repeater. So if you want to get into the digital stuff, now that's where you'd want to buy a new one. Is it the FT70R? I believe, or the FT70, the yaesu FT70, $130, $150, about the same size as this. That will do digital modes, and if you're going to do that, it seems like that would be a great option. But as far as just durability for your dual band or single band radio, you really can't, in some ways, beat these old ones. And I don't see any reason to upgrade. The proof's in the pudding. The upgrade to this is a VX5R. That they still make the VX6R, and it's basically the same radio with a different frequency. This is a tri-bander, so this has 2 meters, 70 centimeters, and then a 6 meter band, which nobody ever uses. The VX6 has 2 meters, 70 centimeters, and 220. And that's kind of another one that's kind of odd, but it's a good radio, and it's very similar to this one, except it's submersible. So the price point on that, though, is you're talking $260 now. So you can see what the Japanese radios are going for. Still new, they're a lot more expensive. So if you can find one of these older ones, and you can get a good deal on it. I think I paid $120 for this 7 or 8 years ago, I believe, and it's still working fine. So and I can still turn around and sell this for probably more than that on eBay. If I wanted to, I could sell this for probably around $150 with a couple of the accessories that I have now, and that would be no problem because it's in perfect working order. I can prove that, and I can show it. So it's funny that it hasn't dropped in value, and some of the older radios are actually going up in value because they just aren't making the correct, the right features and the durability that you used to get. I don't think. Maybe I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. If you guys know anything about this kind of stuff, leave it in the comments below. So the other thing that might compel you to buy a newer radio is software programming. So if you don't want to manually program, I know how to operate this radio. I've done it for years. So to me, programming in a frequency isn't that big a deal. I can scan and look and then program it in, put the text in there, no problem. But if you want to use your computer to do it, you're probably going to have to get a newer radio with newer software. The software on this, as you guys know, computer technology changes. I haven't been able to get this to plug into the latest software. Chirp, I think is what it's called. I have a patch cable. It doesn't work at all. It completely doesn't work, and I don't really care because I can program manually. Years ago, I was able to program this into an old computer that I had, and it worked great, actually. But with the newer software, probably not going to happen as easy. So if you don't want to get into the whole, programming by hand, which I would recommend that you at least learn how to do it. But if you don't want to do that for the most part, then you're going to probably want to get a newer radio with newer software to match a newer computer. So that's something else to consider. With that said, this is still a great radio. I highly recommend the VX5 if you can find one. There's plenty of people around this area still using it, from what I understand. You always hear people talking, I got an old VX5 or an old FT60. And they still very common radio to still be in service. So unless you break it or dunk it underwater or severely abuse it, it should last for years and years and years. And it looks like some basic stuff, like I was able to service it, fix some stuff. They're just really great old radios. So highly recommend it as long as you can check them. All right, guys, that does it for today. If this ham radio stuff interests you, let me know in the comments. Thumbs up, like, subscribe, whatever you got to do. I'll do a couple more ham radio reviews and that type of stuff. and those types of videos if you like it. Leave in the comments below. Also, if there's a highly recommended radio, new yaesu ICOM that you recommend in the $100 to $200 price point, let me know. I would have liked to have gotten one of the VX8 DRs. I think those are cool looking radios. They do a lot of stuff, just have an awesome look to it, and they're long gone. I haven't been able to find one anywhere, and frankly I don't want to pay 500 bucks for one. So but they are so cool, and they don't make anything like that unless you guys have any ideas what they have today. I hope you guys are having a good weekend. I will see you real soon. Talk to you later.